Did you just fart? Oh, that was me. Oh, sorry. 2, 3, 4. Do 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 do. Hey everybody, my name is Jimmy. I went to the comic shop. Books. Beady boo doo boo doo. A lot of books from the fledgling Marvel Comics publisher here today. I'm glad to help out a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate. Get a few more $1 billion. First up, XMen Legends #1. This is a new title for old farts. This is a book. I'm trying to remember now. So back in like 2007, I want to say. That's not how you say those words. It's either 2007 or 2013. You know, they're very close to each other. Chris Claremont came back to the X-Men. Chris Claremont, of course, is largely considered the X-Men writer, bar none. He wrote the X-Men from 1975-ish until 1992-ish. And his run on the X-Men was probably the best-selling run. That was, the 80s were the height of the X-Men's popularity. Into the 90s, certainly. And then by the mid-90s, nobody cared about the comic books anymore as much as the cartoon. Or that's how it's always seemed to me. But back in like 2007, like I say, or maybe it was 2013, I honestly can't remember. Maybe it was, I think it was, okay. In 2007, Marvel put out a book called X-Men Legends, and it was written by Chris Claremont. I can't remember who drew it. It certainly wasn't John Byrne. I don't remember who. And it was basically Marvel just let Chris Claremont pick up where he had left off. His final issue was Adjectiveless X-Men, like number 9 or something like that, maybe 7. He got that book off the ground and then he quit because he was about done anyway, I think. So Claremont has always had, and it was obvious if you've read even just a handful of issues, but he would talk about it in interviews and stuff too. X-Men was a very personal book to him. He grew to love those characters as though they were his own children. If by that I mean he was sexually attracted to the redheaded psychic child. And who isn't, right? But yeah, so it was it was called X-Men Forever. That's right. Okay. It had the same logo. So I was just trying to X-Men Forever, that's what it was called. And it wasn't canon. It was just it was as though the 90s had never happened nor the 2000s thus far, and he just picked up where he had left off. And I was pretty excited for it until I read it and I went, "Oh, that's right. I didn't really like this era that much." I like that era of the X-Men a lot more now. And I think despite the fact that it's almost as though I seem to rag on Claremont more than I ever did, but I also love his work more than I ever did. When I was a kid, I would give, kind of lip service. Oh yeah, Chris Claremont. And I do honestly love his work. It's too much, honestly. So when X-Men Forever came out, it's honest, and I've said this before, it's just too much reading. I mean, I already have to deal with all this hair, and I got to deal with all these captions too. It was a mess. So I dropped it after a while. And then in 2013, he did the same thing with Nightcrawler. I think that one might have actually been canon, though. He had written a Nightcrawler miniseries in the 80s also. He was the one who... Nightcrawler was created by Len Wein and Dave Cockrum, but as were most of those X-Men, that team from 1975. But Claremont was really the one who fleshed them out. So Claremont was the one who made Nightcrawler into a swashbuckler. That was that miniseries. And then when he did Nightcrawler Forever, I think it was called, or it might have been Legends. I think that's where the confusion is coming from. Actually, yeah, none of that has to do with any of this. This is written by Fabian Nicieza, who, I don't know if you know this, is not Chris Claremont. But I think this is a similar idea where, and as far as I know, it's new. Yeah, it's new stories, but it all takes place in the early 90s. These are all very 90s costumes for this teams. When Havoc got rid of the face mask and just opted for the stupid headband. Gambit started that too, where the cowl comes up the back of their head and then stops here for the top. Right? That makes sense functionally when you're a superhuman. So I think this is the same thing where it'll take, like I said, it'll take place in the 90s. But DCA's although I probably read more of his X-Men. Like he took over essentially. I think he might have been group editor when Claremont was there towards the end. He was kind of a big muckety muck, but he was never quite the fan favorite that Claremont ever was. And I don't mean this to damn him with faint praise, but he's a very competent writer. His biggest claim to fame is that he wrote the issue of Alpha Flight in which North Star comes out of the closet. It was the first gay superhero. And so I've only been to one, but I've seen his name on others. Every time they have a gay mutant panel, they have to have Fabian Nicias, even though he's not gay to my knowledge. It was the 90s. What do you want? Also, this week I got the Immortal Hulk Flatline #1. This is a one-shot written and drawn by Declan Shalvey, who makes most of his living as a colorist, and a very comfortable living, apparently, because he works his ass off. I became friends with Jeremy Cox, who's another. He's the DC equivalent of Declan Shalvey as far as. Am I saying that right? Shalvey? Yeah. As far as coloring goes, and it's not like he's a gajillionaire, but he was able to buy a house in Portland. So, I mean, that's not nothing. I mean, I couldn't buy a house. Could buy a house in Beirut if I wanted to. So, yeah, this will be fun. And I mean, Shalvey's written and drawn other stuff. I'm just saying he's mostly known. The bulk of his work is as a colorist. So I'm excited to see him do this. I mean, because that cover alone is really good. The Immortal Hulk itself, the title itself, has come under some fire recently, and because unbeknownst to me, even though I'd read the issue, Bennett, I think his name is, Joe Bennett, who draws the regular title, snuck in some anti-Semitic humor. I mean, I didn't dive too deep on it because I'm not on social media anymore, but it did honestly seem like it wasn't an accident, even though he claimed it was, so. I almost didn't bring that up, but this has nothing to do with Declan Shalvey. So, there. And then finally, this week, from the Vault Comics group, we got Hollow Heart. I don't know why it says L. I think that's the... Okay, I'll explain. I don't know what this book is, because I just saw this cover. I saw the solicit, and I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting enough. And then I saw this cover, and I went, oh, well, then I'll definitely get that if they have it. This is an homage to ROM, which Space Knight, which was a Marvel Comics title in the 80s. And that all this stuff, the corner box, everything, this is all how Marvel covers looked back in the 80s. They would say Marvel Comics Group, obviously. Look, it's even approved by the Comics Code Authority, which I don't think even actually exists, but they'll throw one of these on there every now and again. It's an old fart weekend, or an old fart week. So, yeah, I don't know. L or EL, I think, is this robot character who's the main, but Hollow Heart is the name of the title. Hollow Heart is the title. So, no, I don't know what it is, but I'm happy to have this in my collection. That was definitely you this time. No, it was me again? I don't think so, because I didn't feel anything come out of my butt. And I'm usually third or fourth to know when something comes out of my butt. Last week I read Haha #1, second printing, but oh well. This is really good. I don't think it is I think I said last week that it was an anthology series because that's W. Maxwell Prince's previous series, which I think is still going for Image. It's called Ice Cream Man, and that is an anthology. This is a story of a clown trying to make it in the world. And I don't know, I can't relate to that sort of thing, but maybe any of you out there can. He takes a beating savagely, because that's usually what happens to clowns in popular media. But rather than, shooting Robert De Niro in the face, he has suffered a head injury, so now the world looks as though it is all clowns, and his family's made of balloon animals. So I'm very excited. The second issue came out this week, so I will also be reading that and reporting back. So yeah, and I honestly still think the second printing cover, I don't know what the first printing cover even looks like, but I do like this one better. And then I also read Black Hammer Visions #1. I'm not as excited for it as I was before. Oswald is still a good writer, and it was a pretty good story. It focused on Golden Gale, who in the Black Hammer universe is a 53-year-old woman trapped in this superpowered girl's body. So these two characters are the point of view characters, and they're like, oh, it's weird that this little girl, like they knew her in 4th grade, and then they meet her again when they're in high school, and they definitely think, and Gail says, oh no, that's not me, it's my cousin. And what really kind of got up my nose about this is that they base these two characters on Enid Coleslaw, and I can't remember this character's name, but they were the main characters from Ghost World is essentially who these are supposed to be. And if you're unfamiliar with Ghost World, I highly recommend. It's a great movie. Definitely one of Buscemi's better roles, and that's saying quite a bit. I haven't watched it in a long time, and honestly, I don't know if I'd even relate to it anymore. It was a story written and drawn by Daniel Clowes for his very, very good comic book called 8 Ball, which was a thing in the 90s. And then they made a film out of Ghost World in 2001, I believe it was. And it's, like I say, it's a good movie. These girls are played by the gal from American Beauty, whose name I can't remember. And this is Ms. Scarlett Johansson. I don't know whatever happened to her after that movie. That was actually, Scarlett Johansson was an indie darling, and it was largely because of that movie. And now she's Natasha Romanoff, so she's still an indie darling, obviously. She's still an indie darling because she's the woman on the Avengers. It's a really good movie. It's a coming of age movie, and it's about a couple of weirdos. It was very, I was like 23 or 4 when it came out. It was very relatable. I don't know if I'd relate to it now. I mean, there's a lot of movies from back then that I watch now, and I go, what's the big deal is? Breakfast Club, Fight Club, any kind of a club, really. I'm just not that into anymore. So what bothers me about this, though, and this is nothing against Patton Oswalt, who will never find out that I have these opinions anyway, but it's a little twee. It's a little cute. Like, oh, look at this movie that I know. Like, honey, you're not the only. This is my problem with this sort of thing, is that the implication has always seemed to me that no one else knows what this is. And it's like, dude, you're not the only person who went to a landmark cinema in 2001. This is the most egregious case of this is the Quentin Tarantino film Death Proof, which was part of the Grindhouse movies that they put out back in, what was that, 2005? Death Proof is definitely Tarantino's worst film, but not for the reasons I'm about to lay out. One of the things, personally, that I hated the most about it was that it was a constant callback to the 1969 film Vanishing Point. I think it's 69. There was like a bit of a cult classic from the late 60s called Vanishing Point, starring a guy who was later in the Limey and not much else. He was known for being a driver, though. And then I think like shit, what is his name now? Who's the black guy from Blazing Saddles? I thought if I said it out loud, it would come out, but it's not. It's almost there. Cleavon Little. Thank you. Cleavon Little's in it, and he's tremendous in Vanishing Point. I think that's it. I don't think there's anybody of any other note in it. And it's not a bad movie. I like it. It's kind of a road movie. It's, similar to Easy Rider, and similarly to Easy Rider, it gets a little boring here and there. Like, yeah, the road. I've seen it before. So in Death Proof, if you haven't seen that, and even if you have, he just makes constant callbacks to Vanishing Point. The characters themselves will go, you've never seen Vanishing Point? And it was as though I was watching this movie, and it was as though Quentin Tarantino was sitting next to me going, hey, have you ever seen Vanishing Point? And I was like, oh yeah, great. It's a great movie. Yeah, but it's this movie where the guy has to drive from Denver to yeah, I've seen the movie. No, but then he's getting chased down. Yeah, man, I've seen the movie. Quit talking to me like I haven't seen Ghost World. That's the implication. And I realize I'm definitely reading more into it than need be there. But just honestly, as a writery type, I used to do that. I used to include a lot of snide or a lot of cute references to popular culture that I liked. And that was how I learned how irritating and lame it was, by doing it myself. So now, if I'm going to do that, and I don't think anybody reading this who hasn't seen Ghost World is going to go, who are these? Why is he making, they're not going to think twice about it. So I'm just no fun, I think, is what the conclusion I've reached. I'm gonna go read comic books because that's more fun.